Hey everyone, welcome back to Philosophy versus Science. I'm your host, and I need to tell you something that's been keeping me up at night lately. Last week, I was scrolling through my phone at 2 a.m., you know how it is, reading about climate change, political chaos, people arguing about everything. And suddenly this thought hit me. What if none of this actually matters? What if we're just sophisticated animals on a rock, spinning through space, desperately inventing meaning where none exists? That's when I realized I was having a very Friedrich Nietzsche moment. Today, we're resurrecting the man who declared God is dead and meant it as a wake-up call, not a celebration. Nietzsche, the philosopher who went mad, the thinker who said we must create our own values in a universe that doesn't care about us. I want to pit his brutal honesty against everything we've learned about human psychology, evolutionary purpose, and what actually makes life worth living. Two voices collide, one question that haunts every thinking person. And you are the jury. Here's what I really want to know. If Nietzsche was right, that there's no cosmic meaning handed down from above, does that make life meaningless, or does it make us free? Friedrich, welcome to 2025. I have to start with something personal here. Your famous line, "God is dead, and we have killed him," that used to terrify me. But now we understand so much about how meaning-making works in the brain. When people feel purposeless, we see decreased activity in the default mode network, increased depression markers, higher suicide rates. Evolution actually wired us to need meaning. Humans who found purpose in their tribes, their children, their work, they survived and reproduced. So maybe meaning isn't some cosmic truth you have to create from nothing. Maybe it's built into our biology.
My friend, you describe the mechanics of human need for meaning as if this somehow provides the meaning itself. Yes, humans desperately crave purpose, but that craving doesn't make their inherited purposes true or worthy. You speak of evolution selecting for meaning seekers, but consider evolution also selected for violence, tribalism, and the impulse to dominate others. Should we embrace those simply because they're natural? I watched my own generation worship the Christian God, the German state, traditional morality, all inherited meanings that led to conformity, resentment, and the crushing of individual excellence. When I said God is dead, I meant the old sources of meaning have lost their power to convince honest thinkers. This is not tragedy, this is opportunity.
But here's what puzzles me, and I'm being totally honest here. When I read your work, you seem almost joyful about destroying old meanings, yet your life was pretty miserable, right? Chronic illness, isolation, mental breakdown. If creating your own values is so liberating, why were you so tortured?
You ask the question that cuts to the bone. Yes. I suffered terribly, physically, emotionally, intellectually. But consider this. Would you rather live as a comfortable slave to inherited values, or suffer as someone who dares to think beyond the herd?
My illness, my isolation, these were the prices of honesty. I refused to pretend that traditional answers satisfied me when they clearly did not. The pain of becoming who you truly are is always greater than the comfort of remaining who others expect you to be. That's actually something I think about a lot. Like, how many people do you think are living lives that look successful but feel completely empty inside? Going through the motions of inherited scripts?
Precisely. You see them everywhere, in your offices, your universities, your social media. Performing happiness, performing purpose, performing virtue, while something inside them withers and dies. They have traded their authentic selves for social approval. That trade is the real tragedy, not the suffering of those who refuse to make it.
Let's talk about something that might surprise people. We now know that humans who create their own meaning, what psychologists call intrinsic motivation, actually live longer, healthier, happier lives than those following external scripts. People who pursue self-chosen goals show better immune function, lower stress hormones, higher life satisfaction. But here's what's fascinating. The brain doesn't seem to care whether your self-created meaning is objectively true. Are artists convinced their work matters? a parent devoted to their children, even someone building model trains in their garage. If they genuinely believe it's meaningful, their brain rewards them as if it were cosmically significant.
But you've just proven my point beautifully. The brain rewards us for believing our actions matter, regardless of whether they actually do. This reveals that meaning is indeed a human creation, not a cosmic discovery. But here's where I go further than your psychology. Most people never truly choose their meanings. They inherit them, slightly modify them, and call this personal. The artist paints what galleries expect. The parent raises children according to social norms. The model train enthusiast follows predetermined tracks. Literally, true self-creation requires something most people cannot bear: the courage to stand completely alone with their choices.
Okay, but let me push back on that isolation thing. When I look at people who are genuinely thriving, not just performing happiness, they usually have deep connections with others. We're social animals. Mirror neurons, oxytocin, attachment systems. Our brains are literally wired for connection. Isn't your Ubermensch ideal kind of anti-human?
You misunderstand me entirely. I never advocated for isolation from others. I advocated for independence from their judgments. There's a profound difference. Think of the people you most admire. Are they not those who remained true to their vision despite social pressure? The scientist who pursued unfashionable theories, the artist who created new forms, the person who loved authentically rather than strategically. They connected with others, yes, but as themselves, not as masks designed to please.
That's actually a really important distinction. I think about people like Maya Angelou or Richard Feynman, deeply connected to others, but on their own terms.
Exactly. They loved from strength, not from need. They gave to others from their overflow, not from their emptiness. This is what I meant by becoming who you are. Not isolation, but the kind of authentic presence that makes genuine connection possible. Most people connect through shared weakness, shared resentment, shared conformity. But imagine connecting through shared strength, shared creativity, shared courage to be real. This is what becomes possible when you stop living someone else's life.
But here's what worries me about that ideal, and maybe this is just my psychology background talking, but don't we need some shared values to function as a society, some common ground? If everyone's just creating their own meaning, don't we end up with chaos?
The chaos you fear already exists. Look around you. People fighting over inherited ideologies they barely understand, following leaders who exploit their need for certainty, dividing into tribes based on accidents of birth rather than chosen affinities. True individuals don't threaten society, they transform it. They become the artists, inventors, healers, and teachers who actually move civilization forward. The conformists are the ones who enable stagnation and violence, because they follow orders rather than conscience.
Let me share something that honestly blows my mind. We've discovered that the universe is not only stranger than we thought, it's stranger than we can think. Quantum mechanics suggests reality might not exist until we observe it. Consciousness remains completely mysterious despite mapping every neuron. We might be living in a simulation or one of infinite parallel universes. In other words, we're back to your position. Ultimate reality is unknowable, and we're left to create our own interpretation. But doesn't that cosmic mystery, doesn't it fill you with wonder rather than despair?
Wonder, yes, but also tremendous responsibility. You see, when people believed in cosmic purpose handed down from above, they could blame their failures on fate, their suffering on divine will, their mediocrity on humble obedience to higher powers. But if we are the meaning creators in an open universe, then we become responsible for everything we make of our lives. This is simultaneously terrifying and exhilarating. No more excuses, no more waiting for permission, no more hiding behind inherited scripts. Your quantum mechanics suggest that observation creates reality. This is the perfect metaphor for human consciousness. We don't discover our lives. We create them through the quality of our attention, our choices, our courage to affirm what we value most deeply.
That's beautiful, but here's what I struggle with. You talk about creating values, but how do you choose? Like, if there's no objective standard, how do you know if your self-created meaning is noble or just narcissistic? How do you avoid becoming a monster?
The fear that haunts every honest thinker. But consider, the greatest monsters in history were not those who created their own values. They were those who followed inherited values to extremes. The Crusaders, the Nazis, the ideologues who killed millions, they all claimed to be serving higher purposes beyond themselves. The person who takes full responsibility for their values must live with the consequences. They cannot blame God, society, or nature for their choices. This responsibility is the greatest safeguard against monstrosity.
But that still doesn't answer the how to choose question. I mean, in the lab, when I don't know something, I design experiments. But how do you experiment with fundamental life values?
You live them. You pay attention to what energizes you versus what drains you, what makes you proud versus what makes you ashamed, what brings out your best versus what reduces you to mediocrity. But here's the crucial point. You must be honest about these experiments. Most people lie to themselves constantly about what they actually value versus what they think they should value. True self-creation requires the courage to admit what actually matters to you, even if it disappoints others.
That's actually really practical advice, like a kind of empirical approach to values.
Precisely. Treat your life as a work of art in progress. Some experiments will fail beautifully. Some will succeed in ways you never expected. But you must be the artist of your own existence, not merely the canvas for others' expectations.
Friedrich, I have to admit something. When I started this conversation, I thought your philosophy was kind of dangerous. All this talk about going beyond good and evil, creating your own values. But there's something deeply appealing about taking full responsibility for your life, about becoming who you actually are, rather than who you're supposed to be. And maybe that's what we need right now, in a time when old institutions are failing, when people feel lost, when inherited scripts aren't working anymore. Maybe the answer isn't to desperately cling to traditional meanings, but to have the courage to create authentic ones.
But do not mistake this for easy individualism or selfish nihilism. Becoming who you are is the hardest work a human being can undertake. It requires you to shed every comfortable lie, every inherited prejudice, every social mask that protects you from reality. Most people will choose comfortable conformity over difficult authenticity. But for those rare individuals who refuse to live borrowed lives, they become the ones who actually contribute something new to the world. They love more deeply because they love freely. They create more beautifully because they create from their core.
The truth now rests with you. Give your verdict. We've explored one of the most challenging ideas in human thought, that we might be responsible for creating our own meaning in a universe that doesn't provide one for us. Nietzsche argued that the death of traditional sources of meaning isn't tragedy, it's liberation, the chance to become who we truly are rather than who we're told to be. Modern psychology suggests he might be right. People who author their own lives tend to be happier, healthier, more creative, more resilient. But this freedom comes with a price, complete responsibility for what you make of your existence. No cosmic purpose to blame, no inherited script to follow, no authority to defer to except your own deepest honesty about what matters to you. Is this terrifying isolation or ultimate freedom? Are we lost without inherited meaning, or finally free to discover what we're actually capable of becoming? You've heard both perspectives. The philosopher who said we must create ourselves in a godless universe, the scientist who reveals how meaning-making actually works in the human brain, and why authenticity might be the key to flourishing. Some of you will choose the comfort of inherited purposes. Others will choose the difficult path of self-creation. Both are human responses to the mystery of consciousness in an indifferent cosmos. What's your verdict? Do we need cosmic meaning, or can we create our own? Drop your verdict in the comments. Are you ready to become who you truly are, or do you need inherited meaning to feel safe? And if you want to see us resurrect another philosopher, maybe Sartre on radical freedom, or Aquinas with logical proofs for God, hit subscribe. The conversation between ancient wisdom and modern understanding continues, but only with your courage to think for yourself.